Record. There we go. Welcome back to the channel, guys. I am joined by Scott Wallner, and he's another guest that I stole from Karen. So, Karen, if you're listening, shout out to you. Really appreciate it. Some interesting people for sure. Uh, I listened to this episode you did with Karen, and I was just so curious. Usually, when Karen invites people over, she asks for their story, and I did the same. And I felt like I was talking about myself too much very quickly. And I told Karen, like, I don't know if I'm speaking too much. She's like, no, 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 go ahead, go ahead. And with you, I really felt like, go ahead, please, longer, longer, because you have so much. For me, you have a lot to tell, and there's a lot of things where I want to ask you things about.
Okay.
So, I hope it's not too much repetition for you to do this again. But please, tell the audience a bit about your story, and then I'll stop you when I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I guess the good thing is I don't have a lot of practice with this. So it's probably going to be different. I was actually thinking a lot, we were talking over the past few days, just setting this up. And, I even asked like, dude, do you want, I don't, because I feel kind of so uncomfortable telling my story in a certain way.
I hear you.
That I was thinking about, what should I include? Because I do have a lot of stuff, and some of it is significant in a weird way. Some of it that might seem significant to some people is maybe not as significant to me. Like,
Mhm.
for example, I started by getting degrees in physics and mathematics. And to me, that's sort of one of the less significant things
Mm.
that um, even in terms of like where I'm at now intellectually. Um, but yeah, I guess I grew up in the Midwest, outside of Chicago in the USA, and it was just like pure suburbia. If you know anything about sort of American suburbs, it was that, and it was great. I was so blessed to like have a really great family, strong family, and be safe and secure and have opportunities to do things.
Did you have
And
siblings?
yeah, I do have siblings. I'm the oldest, and then I have a brother who is just 2 years behind me in school. I have a sister who's 3 years behind me in school. So we were all in high school together.
Good.
And then I have a younger brother who is almost 10 years younger than me.
Okay.
So he's like 25 now.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, and grew up, lived in a neighborhood outside of Chicago most of my life. Went to a great high school, took the straightforward path of going to a good college. I went to my mother's alma mater,
Mm.
and yeah, it was just in school. I found math really really easy, and just intuitive and enjoyable. And the same with physics. I had a great physics teacher, and he captured me into that, and just doing the math in the physics world was just kind of fun. And
Mm.
um you know after that I just decided, all right, I guess I'll just keep going with these things in terms of school, because my true focus was on my soccer,
Yeah.
on my football.
Can I
So
ask you a question real quick?
yeah.
Were you like grateful already in those moments? Like, were you already so happy with, because you're speaking about it like everything was great. Was it for you subjectively like,
um I think I did have some recognition that I was like a fortunate young person,
mhm,
and that again, my family was safe, secure. We had things that we needed. So I did recognize that. I didn't have much of an appreciation for it. I was also a very, and maybe this is a negative bias looking back on my young self, but I was a very driven, hyper competitive sort of, I would even call myself just egotistical, straightforward on my path type of person. I had a lot of friends and was good socially, so it didn't interrupt any of that. But in my own little world, it was like a one track mind. And um, yeah, and I was really really focused on football.
yeah,
Um, and so I played like in the top clubs in Chicago, and we competed nationally and internationally. When I
cool.
was young, I traveled overseas multiple times before I was 13 to play. And I had my mind set that eventually I would become a professional.
Of course.
Um, and so that was really in my heart what was pulling me along day to day, practice to practice, game to game. But my parents were just very strong and intelligent people, and they pushed us really hard to do well in school. So I just had, I didn't have a choice but to do well in school, and lucky for me, it came easy. So yeah, I guess after college, I had a good experience. I played in college. I continued to try to play soccer
Can I ask
after
you your position?
depend my true position is playmaker in the middle, the
Of
center mid.
course,
Yeah,
man. That's
but
lovely.
depending on the team, I've played up top as a striker. I played defensive center midfield, but
Yeah.
yeah,
How tall are you?
how tall am I? 5'10".
Perfect, man. You're a perfect soccer player.
No,
I
no,
play football all my life as well, and it's like it sounds like you're you're made for it in terms of your body type and everything. So
you know, I spent a lot of time on it, and I was lucky to have like good competition, good coaching, even back when I was young, where in the US, in the 90s, soccer wasn't as big as it is now. There weren't
no.
like academies, and the MLS was, just getting started and all of that. But
How do you rate it now, actually, MLS? Do you watch it at all?
I don't really watch any teams
Okay.
regularly. I don't have much time.
Yeah.
But I do know that young players are so much better because I've continued to
Okay.
coach. So I've
Yeah.
coached soccer for more than a decade, and I've coached at the college level, Division 3. I've coached Division 1 girls. I've coached high school, middle
Awesome.
school, and I've spent thousands of hours doing like 4, 5, and 6 year olds and 7, 8, and 9 year olds. So
Damn.
I've done a lot of youth soccer coaching, and the talent is crazy. The high school players nowadays would destroy, the high school and college teams from the past. So
Okay.
it's getting a lot better for sure.
That's awesome. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you
So I just gosh, yeah, I wanted to keep pursuing soccer, and I kept my academics going. I was a really, really strong student, and kind of got burned out on my academics by the end of my 4 years in college. And so I say this again sort of negatively, decided to be a teacher because I couldn't do what I thought I would do as an engineer or something. Um, and really just kept trying to play soccer. And eventually, my efforts got me some opportunities in Serbia to play,
amazing.
which is a long story, but it's a family friend who had connections. He was a professional in Serbian, and he hooked me up with the right people, and so I got over there for some trials and was dealing with contracts and all of that, and was right there. um, and that's when I had a career-ending injury, a really devastating injury. So I had like my peak experience. I can even remember the experience where we were playing inside, and we were just playing some 5v5, and we were forced to play one touch. Everybody play one touch. And for me, that was my game. But to be surrounded by these guys who we were just flying around and touching the ball, and it was a flow state, and I'll never forget that. And I felt like, wow, this is what I've this is what I've been wanting. This is what I've been waiting for. And so it was really great. And then I was sort of in the midst of trying to solidify places and contracts, and then I got injured. And
How did it happen?
so I was playing soccer. I was playing in an extra game. I had already finished my league game, like a men's league game. And in my town, I played so much in this town that most people knew me, and I would stay and play with other teams just for fun. I would play my game, I'd play the next game, I'd play the next game. And I just was playing in a co-ed just for fun game. And I went in for a tackle with the guy, and we both hit the ball at the same time. And I came with the inside of I don't want to be too gory, but I came with the inside of my foot,
Yeah.
and he came straight on.
Oof.
And so essentially my lower leg basically almost detached from my upper leg.
Whoa.
I had like a full knee dislocation, and then my MCL tore off of my tibia, my ACL exploded, my MCL, my PCL, everything was torn straight across. And so, yeah, I had to have a couple of surgeries, and then I was basically bedridden and on
Mhm.
crutches for more than a year, and really in bed with a hip to ankle brace for many months. And yeah, that changed my life,
Yeah, I can
right?
imagine.
It changed my life drastically. But the real positive change didn't come for a while. So at first it was a really negative change that took me down. really, really deep.
Mm.
And yeah, it was just some people that I had close to me. I had someone that I was seeing at the time who just kind of helped me through, and my family and my friends um really just gave me a reason to keep going because I lost all of my other reasons
Yeah, I hear
in
you.
my mind. But that changed my life, and that got me started down a path to basically realize that I had to empty myself out and try to fill it back up. And I do remember uh, a very specific time where I told myself, "This is an opportunity to
I
fill
love
your.
that.
You get to leave behind some of the things that you may not have liked or that didn't work." And so it really did feel like a truly like a reinvention of myself. And so it was one of the greatest turns in my life, despite being a really hard time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, then I got into
Yeah.
intellectual and I
There we
started
go.
learning. And so I don't, do you want me to go like where I've been recently? I mean,
Please. No,
oh my,
but like I think we have at the football. If I remember correctly, you're bedridden. You started reading. You were already reading before.
yeah,
You took I think it was a course that was involving Thoreau and
yes.
yes, I think I'm not familiar at all with these authors, but so you already had like an intellectual spark before, and now it was like full on. If I
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
correctly.
So exactly. I was fed some essentially like ecological literature or
Yeah.
environmental literature. And a lot of it is actually based in, at least the stuff that we were given by our professor, was sort of rooted in depth psychology too. So because of that, when I went back to those books, I started reading. I'm like, these are the only books I have from this class. And so I went back and I just started reading those. And then I just started following. I was sort of inspired by what I was reading again. And I started reading about the authors. And like, when I read poetry, I don't totally get it. And so
Yeah.
then I read somebody that has analyzed the poetry and I learn more about it. And then there's just this trail of all of these books. And I just started getting them all. And so yeah, the next jumping off point was like really going hard into Jung. And
Oh, I love that. Please tell me about that. I'm very curious. Where'd you start?
I actually started with Memories, Dreams, and Reflections.
I
Do you know
know
this?
it. Yeah, I have
It's
it on my phone.
autobiography,
Yeah.
or yeah, not autobiography, biography slash autobiography. It's kind of an interesting book. And that really set the stage for me to understand like where Jung was coming from. Um, and then, gosh, what do I have behind me? I mean, Man and His Symbols.
Yeah.
And okay, then I discovered synchronicity was like blowing my mind of like what is synchronicity, and then the practice of active imagination.
I never
Uh,
got that down. Did you?
no, but no, but I tried.
Yeah.
So I tried because of that, and what I was going through. I thought maybe this will help me. Maybe this will help me get out of this and find out what I'm supposed to do. Doing some shadow work type of stuff, um, and opening up my creativity and things like that. And so I, well, gosh, I'll just sort of drop you into where I got into my active
Okay.
imagination. So I've been in and out of classrooms teaching physics and teaching math, and kind of got burnt out on that. Didn't enjoyed it and didn't enjoy it, and was inspired and uninspired, and finally I said, okay, I'm going off to the woods, and I went and I worked on a mushroom farm.
Amazing.
And I was making compost. So what we did at this mushroom farm was we actually essentially cooked compost from scratch as the substrate to grow mushrooms
Mm.
organically. And these are just culinary mushrooms, so like portobellos and whites and shiitake and things that people eat. We sell at the market. And so I was in this tiny little room, like out in the woods on a lake, and I would go do my hard labor every day. I didn't really speak to many people throughout the day. Most people were speaking Spanish. I spoke English. And then I would go home to my little room, and I didn't have to think about work at all. And I just went in and I
Uh,
started trying to go through active imagination and some other sort of spiritual practices, breath work, meditation, project.
okay. Can I ask you a question? This was in Capo Verde,
Oh no, this is still in the US. This was in Wisconsin.
but people speak Spanish.
People who worked at the farm, yeah.
Ah, okay, okay. I was a bit confused because I was like, wait, 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 where are we going? Okay, can you elaborate on the spiritual practices? How did you get well, how did you decide on which you wanted to do? Did you have any teachers?
No, I just tried.
Okay.
Books and the internet.
Awesome.
Wim Hof, like I tried, and
Yeah.
like tropic breathing, I tried some of that.
Yeah.
And I tried just some, I tried meditation. It never worked for me. Like uh if I was trying to relax and let go, I can't do that. I can't. I still haven't figured out how to like turn it off in here. And so I really, really struggled with that. And so instead I tried like projections, like going out of body,
Yeah.
and got pretty good at that, and some like lucid dreaming and the breath.
Okay.
Mhm.
What do you do in a lucid dream?
What have I done?
Yeah, what do you do? Like when once you figure it, I've never figured it out. I wonder, would you fly? What'd you do?
I didn't fly. The couple times that I've done it, I've been able to run really, really fast. I
Oh,
was able
nice.
to, I was the sort of like on the rooftop scenario where I was like jumping, like crouching tiger, hidden dragon, and I was like jumping like that. And then another one that I had was it didn't start out as a lucid dream, but I was swimming, I was being chased as usual. All my dreams are nightmares,
Same.
and I'm being pursued
Yeah.
in some form or another. And I
Yeah.
had to go into the water, and I went under the water, and then I realized, wait, I've been under the water like way longer than I can hold my breath. I'm like, right, okay, I can just stay under the water. And then I just stayed under the water, and I was just swimming
That's
around.
dope.
Yeah, so but only really like very vividly successful just a half a dozen times.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, I didn't really get very good at it. Some
Mm-hmm.
people can make it happen pretty regularly, and
Yeah.
also do thought experiments in lucid dreaming and things like that, and code in lucid. I've heard lots of stories
No
about.
way. People code in lucid dreams?
Oh yeah, yeah. They said they debug their code in their lucid dream, so they'll wake up with the solution.
This is the productivity hack I've always been like.
Yeah, the waking hours aren't enough for you. You need.
No, I don't. Well, I don't. I don't mind sleeping. I just have a lot of nightmares, so I would rather just be coding if I could.
Well, tell me about that. I that was a lifelong thing for me, actually. I
Nightmares.
had a lot of trouble sleeping, trouble
Okay.
falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, and then nightmares. Like I said, for a while, I didn't know what a dream was. People talked about like happy, fun dreams. I'm like, I never have a happy, fun dream.
Yeah,
It's all
same.
scary.
My theory is this. I didn't have them all my life. I think it has something to do with a shadow as well that Jung talks about. So that unconscious side, I'm probably butchering it, that you don't let come into fruition during the
Mm.
day. When I had a darker period of my life, my dreams were like my happy place. My sleep was my happy place. I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
Now my life, I wake up, and I'm blessed enough to be like I'm excited, you know. And now my
But
dreams are really just the worst. Like I'm being chased and I'm guilty and I know it, and it's just this type of stuff. But I know
so,
it's probably too simplistic of an explanation, but it's the one that's worked for me thus far.
well, I have a particular intuition about dreams that I got from someone named James Hillman. He's an author. He's
Hmm.
a psychologist, and um, has written about dreams and sort of personal development, but also like death and things like that. He's wonderful. Would highly recommend his books. And one thing to keep in mind is that everything in your dream is generated by you,
Mm.
right? And so you create your own pursuant, right? And so what is that? Is it something, it's sort of your nature to
Hmm.
feel pursued, to be pushed, to run away, to
Mm.
what is chasing you down,
Yeah.
it's something that's sort of expressing itself in this type of imagery. Um, but I feel like it's probably intrinsic and
Yeah.
just being pushed into the only place that it can, because in your waking, it doesn't make it to the surface.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have room because you're doing so much of the things, you know? Do you feel like you're always running forward?
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. I think there's definitely a side to me. Like you talk about your person. Did you take Peterson's personality test?
Yes.
What is your conscientiousness?
Low, highly disagreeable,
Yes. Okay.
pretty low conscientious. Oh, what was my I can't remember. Oh, I took it so many years ago, like back
Yeah.
in 2017 when Jordan was
Yeah.
like
Yeah. He blew
just
up.
coming off and everybody was digging in. I did it right away, self-authoring and
Yeah, yeah,
like all.
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. No, okay. Because I was wondering about that because for me, well, you sound like someone who really pursues his goals and you sound very conscientious. So I'm surprised by your score because you seem to work very hard at the things you do, but maybe you just enjoy it so much that it comes easy. I don't know what that
Yeah,
is.
I think I have I like a strong, like a stubborn person and
Oh
like a
yeah.
strong sense of myself and not willing to bend.
Mm,
So I can be very like I'm a very skeptical person,
yeah.
very a contrarian.
Yeah.
And so, if it doesn't fit my
Yeah, I
bill,
see you.
then
This
um
explains your theories, your thoughts, your frameworks.
maybe.
I think part of it because like I'm too agreeable to and also just I know I'm not smart enough to invent an ontology, but you seem to have at least like the academic background to venture into that because I think what you do have is the combination of the different disciplines, which is quite rare, um, and the
I
embodied experience. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right. That's you know, I say that like in interviews all the time. Trying to tell people about my background. I'm like, look, I've had a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
Um, but I think actually, like what you're pointing out, the contrarian nature, I've always felt really strongly about that. Even when, like when I can remember two very specifically when I read Richard Dawkins
yeah,
and when I read Daniel Dennett. I was disagreeing with them the whole time.
mm,
I was like, I get this. This is very smart. I agree, or I shouldn't say the whole time. I agree with a lot, but I was always finding points where I'm like, this doesn't seem to work. This isn't making total sense to me.
but that's a
Darwinism
good
and
sign. That's good.
yeah, I guess I don't know where I got that from, honestly. My dad is like one of the most conscientious people in in the world.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like the most polite and just principled person. Um, so I don't know. It was probably during my rebellious drop into the black sheep
yeah.
of my family.
That's
Something like.
amazing. I pulled all this up to say that I think the reason I'm being chased in a way, even though
Mm,
I work pretty hard, is that my industriousness is really, really high. And if I don't do something that to me is productive, like I get restless, let's say.
yeah.
So I think that maybe is an explanation.
Mm.
But dreams for me remain very enigmatic.
Do you think that dogged pursuit is worth it and is paying off for you? Because you can make arguments both ways, and obviously there has to be some sort of balance. But do you
Yeah.
feel, yeah, what do you think?
I would say that when I was a little bit younger, let's say 3, 4 years ago, it wasn't paying off because I didn't consider social connection
Mm,
or meditation or let's say work on my mental health as productivity. But I've been able to reframe that so that even when I'm not working on like intellectual stuff, I still feel productive. So for me, having a dinner with my partner is productive because it's good for the relationship, and doing meditation is productive because it's good for the well for a lot of things. So I guess in that sense, it hasn't. Well, as of recently, it hasn't been to my detriment, but it definitely used to be.
mm. Yeah, interesting. I feel like I've struggled with that balance too, and also the you can create, or I have created a problem for myself often of just over analyzing my own behaviors, and
Yeah,
then becomes the problem, not the
yeah,
behavior.
Yeah,
with the
yeah, yeah.
overanalysis of the behavior. Um, and yeah, so there's a balance. There's also there's also a lot to letting go and
Mm,
letting go of the pursuits too. Maybe this is where I bring up Cabo Verde
yeah,
and talk about the lifestyle there, which was, my friend and I, we bought one-way tickets and we had two backpacks each, and we lived in a, 10 by 15 concrete room.
amazing.
It's on the beach, and it was the most content I've ever been in my whole life. You
Wow.
know, I didn't need I didn't need my books. I didn't need my phone. I didn't need my internet. I didn't need to learn. Well, I was learning, but I wasn't trying to learn anything.
Mm.
I was just trying to be with those people and just like enjoy the experience of the culture and the place and the land. And um yeah, we were doing some really interesting things there. So it felt like a different planet to me, what we were doing. So
It was
yeah.
ecological preservation, right? Part of it?
Yeah. So we worked with like we lived with a community.
Yeah.
My friend had been there with the Peace Corps, so that's how he knew
Mm-hmm.
all of the people. And he actually stayed after his Peace Corps tour. He's like, I'm staying here.
Wow.
Um, and so he kept working with them. He left eventually and came back to the US. We reconnected. This was like my greatest childhood friend. And then we both were fed up with the machine was chewing
Mm-hmm.
us up. And he's like, I'm gonna go back to Cabo Verde. And I'm like, dude, I'll go with you. Let's give this a shot. And so we were living with a community, and this community lives on like a 3 kilometer stretch of black sand beach in this little bay.
Oh.
And um, it's a place where loggerhead sea turtles nest. And so they work to protect the sea turtles
Mm.
and their nesting habits and clean the beach and clean their community and then educate the community about the importance of their place. There's also there's a little estuary near there. It's actually a world UNESCO site. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
a heritage site, one of those. And so it's beautiful. And so we were living with this community, and during the nesting season, we would go out and patrol the beach all night long. And we would walk across the beach back and forth all night long, waiting to find maybe a turtle that was nesting. We would mark the nests and put a sort of like a cage around it, because dogs would come and dig up the nests and eat the turtle eggs. And we would try to tag some turtles and take tissue samples, and we would clean barnacles off their shells. And um, but yeah, we were just, marching down the beach in darkness, up and down, waiting for turtles, right next to the shoreline, just right next to the ocean. I would often just like, even when I wasn't on patrol, I would just go sleep right out by the ocean. Um, and so it was amazing. It was amazing seeing the stars like that. I mean, people who see the stars in like pure darkness, they say it's amazing, and it is.
Yeah.
It's unavoidably amazing. Have you ever had the chance to do that?
No, not really. I've been I think the closest is just at my parents' place, and that's still in this country, so it's not I don't think it's anything like it. I've seen the Milky Way, but the fact that that's special is like telling, I think. But it's one of my dreams for sure. Even to see it at like what's it called? Observatory, where you see
Mhm.
like where you see it like even more magnified. But
Right,
I can
right.
imagine it's beautiful.
Yeah, so we were just, living on the beach, living so simple. All the food that we had was there that we either caught or that our community had grown or that we got from the market where the
Hmm.
community was contributing to, you know. Now the country is not completely like that. If you know anything about Cabo Verde, it's like there's very disparate levels of lifestyle. So down in the capital, you have people from the US Embassy and you have a university. Um, and so people are living in apartments and you know what I mean, going to restaurants and like going to a nightclub. But then, you know 15 or 20 miles away, you have people who are just living off of the land, and just subsistence farming, and their families have been doing that for a long, long time. And communities that don't have running water or electricity or central plumbing and things like that. So um Very interesting country, beautiful. I would recommend anyone to go visit there. There's so many different islands and different cultures and language, and the people are wonderful. It's so beautiful. And so yeah, we had visas and then came back, and visas and came back, and so we spent basically a year together there. And yeah, it was the most content I've ever been in my life. I can never replicate it, I don't think.
What age were you when you did this?
That was like 2017. So I was almost 30.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
you
what.
were more content then than you are now.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Wow.
definitely. I
Yeah,
have
that's really
so
cool.
much in my, but contentness and sort of like fulfillment, I
Yeah,
think
it's different.
are not exactly. I mean, having kids is like the most mind-blowing experience that I've had in my life, but I wouldn't call it contentedness.
No, no, of course. But that's what I was curious about. I don't think it's the
Yeah,
word.
I
Yeah.
think eventually, maybe with my family life, I'll be very content with like where we're at and like everyone is safe. And, if I can set up a childhood, like I had, where my kids have opportunities and they're, intelligent enough and well spoken and well liked and healthy and all of that, then maybe I will feel more content with it. But right now, it feels like a lot of effort to keep it together and to like keep it on track. It's a lot of effort.
Yeah, I hear you.
Mhm.
Okay, so you come out of this country, is a country, island,
Cabo Verde, yes.
islands. What do
Mhm.
you speak Spanish, sir?
They actually speak, so they speak a Crioulo, which is
Ah,
based in Portuguese, but it's a African dialect and Portuguese blended.
okay.
But you can go there with Portuguese and
Be
speak to
fine.
everyone.
Did you learn
Mhm.
did you learn that language a little bit?
A little bit. It was very difficult, and it was a
Yeah,
short time span. And
yeah.
honestly, it was amazing being an observer a lot,
Mm,
being very quiet. I spent so much of my life being the voice
yeah,
of being the teacher, being the coach, being the captain, being the most opinionated, being the know-it-all. Always sort of putting myself out there. And this, I had no choice. I had to sit back, and it was again another way of being for me that I had not had before. And that type of, yeah, that quiet and silence ended up really sticking with me too.
amazing. All right, so what happens when you come home?
Oh my
And
gosh.
where's home?
Still Chicago area
Okay.
now, a little bit north of there in a state called Wisconsin. So
Yeah.
it's just an hour outside of Chicago, basically. Let's see, what did I do? What did I do after that? Well, I had lived in New York City previously before that. And then I went to Cabo Verde, and then I came back. And that's when I actually went back to that old lake that I started at on the mushroom farm. I went
Mm,
back to that place. They welcomed me back. I sort of like watched over the property. It was a family, their property, and I lived in like a tiny little coach house, and they only lived there during a certain part of the year. So I sort of watched over it, did all the yard work and all of that. It was great. Um, and that's where I got back into like a fire for philosophy, studying perception and vision and consciousness and all of machine learning and sort of all of those areas that are sort of interconnected now really, really capture me. And then I decided to try to go back to school because I was having so many thoughts. I was writing a ton.
mm,
Um, I have a lot that I've written. And then I felt like I'm doing all of this writing, but nobody knows about it. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's crazy. Honestly, I thought that to myself. I'm like, all of this stuff, I feel like this is good. This is good writing. This is good stuff. I'm working through things. I'm figuring stuff out, but I wasn't checking it with anyone. I was totally secluded. And so I basically pushed myself. I'm like, if you want to keep going with this, you better check it with the real world. And so I decided to try to go back and got into a PhD program at the University of Oregon. Um, and so I went out to Oregon, had a wonderful experience. I finished my master's first. I was coaching with the women's soccer team there. It
mm,
was an amazing experience. Loved my I was a part of the Institute of Neuroscience. I loved my classes. I took extra classes. I was leading a journal club. It was just
That's
boom,
amazing.
on fire.
Yeah.
Um, and then COVID happened,
Yeah.
and it just really, the best way I can say is that it just sort of dissolved. Um, and So yeah, I still have an opportunity to go and finish my. Basically, I just have to do my PhD thesis, but I have a whole PhD thesis planned. I have basically a massive outline. I have all the empirical work designed and everything. I would just have to pull it off. I have a committee and everything.
So the
Um,
ideas are not crazy.
right. Apparently not.
Okay.
I still don't trust myself enough, but if I'm going just based off of the evidence of and feedback from other
Hmm.
people who I consider experts, like truly experts, um, then I am on to something. I'll give you two examples. Oh, it's making me uncomfortable to talk about myself like this, but so when I proposed um, my my dissertation to my committee, which included the department chair of the psychology department at the University of Oregon, he was on my committee. Um, he responded with, "Well, Scott, there's two ways this can go. Either you're going to be the next David Chalmers, or you're going to be unemployed. So, do you really want to go down this route?" That
That's
basically
amazing.
he was warning me. He said, this could be powerful work. And there's so many people. So I'm not special or unique or anything like that. There's so many smart people in any number of universities.
Hmm.
But he was giving me feedback like, hey, this is a really interesting path, but I wouldn't suggest this. Like,
Okay.
it's not going to take you anywhere. Um, but I happened to convince a professor emeritus from the philosophy department to be on my committee just by pitching him my ideas, and another professor emeritus in the Institute of Neuroscience. So these people generally don't take graduate students or PhD
Yeah.
students,
So that's
but
awesome.
they're very interested.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so I have done a lot of work towards that. And it's not a humble topic. Basically, the title of my PhD thesis could be something like "What is information?" So
Okay.
I'm really going very deep, you know, into the metaphysics, into basically a philosophy of cognitive science, and information theory. I'm trying to propose new alternatives to like Shannon information theory and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, and So yeah, right now it's just I can't even go there right now.
Wow.
It's it requires too much time and hard thinking for me to put it all together. But I have full support of my committee, and I'm on leave. I had children, and they're constantly just asking me, hey, whenever you're ready to come back and finish, we want to finish this work. We're
Awesome.
ready. So
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of where that stands. I have an incomplete PhD. Um,
Well,
but
that sounds exciting to me. I'm very curious as to what it's gonna look like. So you talked a little bit about your children already. I think this is your part where you can't fail. That's what you told me offline. So can you tell me about how, let's say how you met your partner and how this has all been going?
yeah, so I guess it started. I really just decided that all of the things that I had done, all these things that we had laid out, whatever it was, right? Becoming a professional soccer player, going off to be a mushroom farmer, going to live on a island in the middle of the ocean,
Yeah.
going to change the world with my mind, and intellect. That's really what I thought I could do. Be a scientist, be a philosopher. All of those pursuits, as I mentioned earlier, failed. I didn't get to where I thought I would go. And I was truly left with this same sort of empty feeling. And it was the whole COVID thing really brought that to the surface.
Mm.
But I did recognize that I had sort of gone through this cycle and this pattern of getting really motivated and really inspired to dive all the way into something, and then sort of letting myself down ultimately. And then feeling that sort of emptiness of like, what do I do now? What is my purpose? What am I want to do something great. I want to do something unique. I want to do something exciting. And I just kind of realized that I think this pattern is just going to continue. If I go again, I could come up with something new and I will end up in the same place. And I realized in the sort of isolation and loneliness of being out there that my family was all that I had left. It was all that I had left. And my parents and my family never gave up on me through all of these pursuits. You can imagine my mother when I tell her, hey mom, yeah, I'm gonna quit. I'm not gonna be a teacher anymore. I'm getting a one-way ticket to an island off the coast of Africa. I'm gonna go try to save sea turtles.
Yeah.
You know, you can imagine like what she was like, no, you're not. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? But they supported me, and when it failed, they welcomed me back. And I always ended up back with my parents. The first place that I ended up was back with them, and then off to something new. And a
Mm.
failure, come back. And I just realized that was all that I had. And I realized how all of the things that I had done were so amazing. The experiences were wonderful, and I couldn't have done those without my amazing parents. And so the next step for me was, I think my time is done.
Mm.
I think it's time for me to step back
Yeah.
and just focus on something simple, and create a family for myself and have children. Um, and so I basically, we have these websites or services where you meet people online nowadays.
Hmm.
And so I did that. I can't even remember which one I did. It's not like eHarm. What is it? I can't remember the name of it, but it's a serious one. It's not like the
Yeah.
swipe, the Tinder or
I
whatever
hear
that is.
you.
Where you put a lot into your profile and you're
Hmm.
really trying to match with people and have conversations. And so I met my wife through that. We got married, and both of us were at a certain age where we were ready to have children.
How quickly did you know you want to get married? Because that's quite a thing. Like you got married, boom.
Well, I think we both knew that we wanted to get married in general first,
Okay, that's good.
and we before we even knew each other,
Yeah, yeah.
and we were both looking for this next step,
Hmm.
and we found each other, and we had a great connection, and we had this mindset of, you know, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to go down my thoughts on arranged marriages, but it's sort of it's related to maybe the positive spin on arranged
Yeah,
marriage.
I understand. I think I know where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh no, we're still here.
yes,
Sorry,
that
I lost you. I lost you for a sec. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Okay,
I
you
hear you
froze
now.
for a second too, but we're
Yeah,
back.
we're good.
Yeah, I think it was just this faith, in the commitment and in the thing that is larger than us. We both wanted to start a family. And so you let a little bit of yourself go when you know that you're going to put everything into your kids and
Mm.
into your partnership. And so it was very, once we knew that we had a strong connection and a lot of those things that make people fall in love were there, and then we were ready to go, and we committed. And so it only took us a summer.
Wow, that is different. That's one for the tombstone. It took us a summer. That's awesome.
Yeah, it did. And I'm not saying that's the way anybody else should do it or that it would work for anyone else. I do think that I would speak for this idea of, don't look for the perfect person out there, because they might be perfect for you when you meet them, but everybody changes.
Yeah,
You know, you
I hear
have
you.
to you have to be ready for people to change and be ready for challenge. And any relationship, brothers, siblings, parents, partners, friends, there's when you spend a lot of deep time together, there's going to be challenges.
Yeah.
So you just get ready for that. And say, hey, we're going to be in this together and we're going to always come back to that. And so we did. And now
Wow.
we have some kids and yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
yep,
I'm really happy for you. I can only second the idea about being ready first and then finding someone. I felt exactly the same way because I think I was 18 or 19 when I really got into Peterson and stuff. And at some point I was like, okay, ready to find a wife. So I told my family as well. Like I was a 19-year-old kid, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna find her. So I just did this challenge with myself, just meet people every day, and then um, once I'm like sure, I'm sure. So that's
Mhm.
for me. It's about the same. It didn't take me a summer. I'm not married yet, but I'm very sure that I will. And I think it's such a liberation for me, just knowing that you're ready. And then once you find that person, it gives so much assurance to the other side. And like now I'm together with her for a year and a half, but within the first week I already knew, you know. And that's
Mhm.
such that's really a relaxed feeling, let's say. It feels effortless almost, even though there's challenges, but you're ready for them, like you say. So
Yeah. Well, take your time, man. You're like I said, you're like unbelievably young. You are some sort of old soul or something. You seem like you've had so many experiences, but I would say take your time because yeah, and with your partner and whatever, dude, explore, like um yeah, you don't want to get to the end point early,
mm.
Like I said, like I'm to the point where I let go of what am I trying to do in the world?
Yeah,
It's
I sorry.
it's beyond me now. I did enough.
Yeah, I
So
know, I
like
understand.
so you have a lot to go for and accomplish um and fail too. Fail, have
Yeah,
some
no,
fail.
I love, like I failed so much in my life. Like I feel, of course I'm young, but my biggest lessons are definitely the failures. And about the relationship thing for me is the way I feel about why I don't feel like exploring anymore is because I just felt that I felt like I got like a hyper dose of what guys usually go through in their 20s, but
Mm,
like in my late teens, because we drink usually a bit earlier in this country in the Netherlands. So we start earlier and we get like a lot of exposure to everything, and you want to chase girls and stuff like this. And I was really sick of it after like 3 years.
mm,
Once I got to 18, I was like, oh, now I can actually get into clubs legally, stuff like this. And it started to become very boring. And I realized how much more fulfillment I felt with the long-term pursuits.
mm,
And so same with the relationship. I feel that the reason I have so much depth in it is because I'm so committed to it and because I've given this commitment from the start. So for me, the thing is that I'm very explorative. I think that's the word in my I'm explorative in my intellectual pursuits and what I'm gonna do. I have no idea what my job will be the next 10 years, let's say. But for me, the relationship is like that's my base, my home. So it's
mm.
my static part, and then the dynamic can be can be the pursuits.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, there must be balance for sure. Yeah, thinking about careers nowadays is very difficult in
Oh, it's
today's.
different. It's
It,
different. Yeah.
it was very much more straightforward when I was young, and like
Hmm.
it was just obvious. Like when you grow up in the middle class, in the 90s, it's like, yeah, you're gonna go to school, you're gonna get good grades at a good school, you're gonna get a good job, and then but
Yeah.
now I have kids now. I mean, I don't plan to send them to college or university.
It's
I don't
difficult.
know if it'll be there by the time
Yeah.
for that in 10, 15, 20 years. What will the university look like? I have no idea. So it's an interesting time to think about the future. Um, whether you're 20 or whether, my 1 year old, it's like, what is her future?
Yeah. To me, it's mostly exciting, to be honest, personally. Like, I know, of course, a lot of people are predicting quite a bit of doom and gloom, but for me, I like the adaptability that I keep finding within myself, where I see mostly opportunities. I don't see a lot of like, and it's also due to my personality. I'm not very neurotic, let's say. So for me, and also the conscientiousness helps because I know that if I want to pursue something, I can set my mind to it and I can succeed. So the digital age to me is very interesting. Like I'm really embracing it in many ways. Like this to me, like the Zoom thing, we were talking about it before, whether or not it's satanic. It's at least very cool to me. So I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm if I'm fooling myself, but
for
it's
sure.
very
Well, I mean, we can maybe just partition like the pragmatic side of it and
yeah.
the power like we have to meet each other
Yeah,
and
it's
speak,
wild.
but also the sort of the egregores, do you know that term?
I've heard it before. It was probably
Yeah,
a Peugeot term that
Pageau. Exactly.
I
Exactly. Yeah, we're just demons, um, like Google. I shouldn't say this out loud, but like, Google, Facebook, these are demons in the real world, right? These are things that have causal power in the real world,
yeah.
but are not an entity, made of matter or
No,
anything
not
like
of matter, but they're made of something for sure.
that. Exactly. It's right. Is it energy? Is it spirit? Is it, I don't know what they're made of. Is it a network? Is it a, what is it?
I
But
think we're using like these terms which are quite euphemistic. Like for me, when I hear the term network, I'm not very worried, you know. But when you hear demon, you're like, ooh. It's like- but I like that Peugeot is trying to bring this idea into the world of like there's principalities and they're I mean they're real in a like in a very real sense that they exist. So
yeah,
yeah, for sure, for sure.
exactly. And yeah, I wish I think that could be a big change in just the sort of lay understanding of terms like that, where people who are maybe not like practicing a religion or they have an idea of like what an angel or a demon is, and just like they have an idea of like what an alien is,
Hmm.
or a monster, like but I think, as you said, they are not fantasy, right? They're not real in the way that my desk is real, but they are real in the way that they impact and, like I said, just have causal power
Yeah,
in the real world on real people. Um, so yeah, what type of power is that that you can have impact on real people without having a body yourself, without
yeah.
what maybe there's I shouldn't even be saying self to that thing. Um,
Gosh,
yeah,
man, Scott, like I think I could do 40 episodes with you. I'm really like everything you say, I'm like, let me make this into an episode because I'm a
well, you saw my email. I feel so bad about my email now, but I had to, that's why, because I talk to some other people online, like I
yeah,
said, and we go off into some of these rabbit holes, and
amazing.
yeah, I'm willing to go down any of them.
Exciting,
Um,
man.
but I'll let the listeners know. I emailed Lucas like, hey, what are we gonna talk? What do you want to talk about? Like, please don't make me talk about myself. Like, no, I'm just kidding. But I listed all of these things that like go on in my mind that we could talk about. And now I feel bad because I just sound like a crazy person with all
No.
these
You were
ideas. But
verified. You were verified by the university, Scott. You're good. Really.
well, I didn't talk about, soul, spirit, or body at the university. So
Okay,
uh
yeah. I mean, you got to keep it PG. You don't want to get kicked out just yet. You want to be like a level
like
where you're like uncancelable and then you start.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
my goal at least.
right. I feel like I have more to say about like hope than I do about quantum
Of
physics.
course, yeah, I feel similarly.
But we
But
don't we don't talk about hope in the university really. We talk about neural networks and you know,
you remind me
uh
of Wolfgang Smith. He's like, I did my mathematics. Every man has to make a living. That's it.
I very much relate to the way that he speaks and all of that and his story and his perspective. I very much relate to that. I'm not putting myself on that level. He's like a way brilliant genius. But I do feel like I have some of that same background where I have the same, he's had perspectives, like
Yeah,
along the way. I feel like I've been on some of those same stepping stones. Um, and so I just really like soak up what he has to say because it feels so intuitive to
Oh,
me.
yes.
Um, and with my background, right, when I'm not finding that like obvious contrarian skeptical pushback, then it's like it's fitting right into my own, worldview or umwelt or yeah, my own theory of everything or whatever. It works so well. And I have my own circle, center, boundary
Yeah,
type
I
of
heard about this. I think we
and
should get you on Kurt's channel at some point, to be honest, because they're extremely selective. Like they don't pick guests for views. I've seen Kurt's process, and I think you fit the description very well. So, and
I think
Kurt has been he's commented on this channel, and he knows Karen a little bit. So, I mean, I think it's possible.
yeah, I've had a few messages back and forth with it. I think we've emailed a couple of times. Usually I'm just like trying to support, like just
Yeah, yeah.
my love for what he does because it seems like so much effort. Dude, that's very nice of you to say. Like, but I definitely don't feel like in that sort of echelon of like guest, like I'm not a published scientist. Like I said, I've just failed a bunch of times.
I think
Um,
you fit the description much better than any published scientist, to be honest.
well,
To me,
oh,
it's an
God.
upside that you're not a published scientist.
It's very difficult actually.
Yeah,
It's the difficult process. Writing is difficult in general too. People are constantly telling me that I should write a book, and I say, why would I ever do that? um,
but you're like George Washington, man. You should do it.
uh,
You just
yeah, I have
like
so much written, but it's never finished, and so much of it I never go back and look at again. It's kind of like the artwork that I've done too. I have thousands of I call them geometric constructions. But I have literally like thousands. I've never looked at it a second
no
time.
way.
Yeah.
God, they should make a movie.
That was part of
This,
my active imagination. I went so I did I started this practice of trying to open up my creativity
yeah,
and also release myself from my analytical thinking. That was part of it,
yeah.
was that I wanted to let go of the analytical. That was a part of what I took from Jung, was that when you're in this effortful thinking and you're limited.
Mhm.
And so to release myself from that, I tried to draw. I can't draw. I cannot be artistic. Like it's the same block that I have with meditating, right? I like get all up in my head of like, this doesn't look right. What am I even trying to do? And so I had to constrain my creativity. Um, and so I constrained it in the simplest way that I could, which was go to the thing that I love the most, which was geometry. And so all I had was I had my compass, my straight edge, just back to the Greek times. I had my compass, my straight edge, and then each time I would pull out a few colors of colored pencils, and I would just leave it at that. And so I would just start sort of, you know, circles and arcs, and became this whole thing. And I did it for probably almost 5 years, almost every night. Um,
This
and
is amazing.
if not multiple times in a night. So I have a big stack of these, that the ones at the bottom, like I said, I've almost never like looked at a second time.
No,
Some Once I met my wife, she encouraged me to look at a bunch of them again. So I have done that, but for many years they just sat in a box and I had never even looked at them. Um, but that was it worked. Some of my Probably all of my great intuitions and ideas that took what I had been thinking about analytically and absorbing through reading and watching YouTube and things like that, the pieces fell into place or just sort of came out when I was doing those geometric constructions, when I
wow.
did stop thinking. And so I would constantly be like doing that. And then I would go and I would write a ton, or go on my computer and write pages and pages and pages, because it would just come out after that. Um, so yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it was written, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter into the academy."
Right.
So I think
Yeah,
you're onto something. Like you seem to be.
geometry was the best. Did you take geometry?
No, I suck at all math, physics.
But geometry is like barely math. Um, it's actually so interesting. So a lot of geometry is sort of proof,
Mhm.
right? You're proving these principles, or you're
Yeah,
using axioms, and
yeah.
um, and yet it's all so visual.
Yeah.
Um, and so that really stuck out to me. I've been doing puzzles and a very visually driven person my whole life, and so it just made sense to me. Um, and yeah, if you go down the sacred geometry rabbit
Did
hole,
you
and I mean, I guess, yeah,
wait, can I ask you, did you do it like the ancients? Like, is there an ancient school you subscribe to, or did you do like a modern
no, I would
spin-off?
say I think like almost to the point of, I don't know if I would say like woo woo like spirituality, but
Oh,
if you're getting stuff on YouTube, I mean, it's good.
it's the best
There
source out there.
right now, yeah, honestly, there is some really cool stuff. I
No,
mean,
it's true. It's true.
just the principles of geometry that seem to be embedded in nature are really interesting. That's why I
Yeah.
got into fractals. So I actually ran some studies based on fractals at my university. Um, and got very, very interested in fractals and still am. But yeah, that's where it becomes really, really interesting to me, is that we have a formalism that really accurately, I don't want to say precisely, but pretty accurately describes what we see in nature.
Mm.
That's really, really interesting. And things like with the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio and, those sorts
Do
of
you draw
things.
from these things? Because I watched the YouTube videos as well, like as a teenager, and I was like, whoa, 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 like it's super cool. Do you draw any conclusions from it? Like, what do you take away from it? Because for me, it's like it seems like it all makes a lot of sense. All these things, it's super cool. And then I'm thinking like, okay, what now? What is it?
I don't know if I have a what now sort of feeling that's in like a meaningful spiritual way.
Hmm.
I think it's more of just a recognition of the beauty,
Yeah,
and also I think in the way things grow in the world,
yeah,
right? So our world is alive. It's all in process. It's always changing, and things grow and they come together despite what physicists say about entropy, right? There is living things do
clearly,
come, and the way that that happens often follows these simple patterns. And I guess ultimately, to me, it just ends up like, yeah, that makes sense. There probably would be a simple pattern down at the bottom level of this.
yeah.
And this sort of, just like life, it's this sort of iterative, recursive, take what you have and change it to become something else, then take what you have, change it and become something else, right? And if you have a simple rule to sort of follow that path of change, then you can, become an oak tree. You
Mm,
know what I mean?
I hear
Like,
you.
all of that is in there in the acorn right away. And so I just more nowadays, I just see it everywhere. And it's just a fun, like, oh, the branches are following the fractal pattern. I can see the self similarity at scale on the branch, or the rows of clouds that I see, and I'm just like recognizing the pattern, and just honestly, just an appreciation of the beauty is how it impacts me now. Um, yeah, I would say stuff
Wow.
like that. And thinking about things at the smallest scale, I think fractals make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you think about the universe as, well, in my opinion, like there aren't any real boundaries.
Hmm.
And yet there appear to be boundaries. So
Hmm.
how do you make sense of the fact that it seems like there's boundaries, but that there's not really boundaries? Fractals are the sort of the perfect solution for that.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of the only thing that we can grasp that sort of allows us to keep those two sort of contradictory ideas together. Um, so yeah, it has an interesting place, I think, just in our world and in our perception of the world, our image of the world. Um, and yeah, I don't know what math is. The math is so interesting. Um, but because I don't really know what numbers and symbols actually are compared to like what a cell or a tree is,
Yeah.
um, it's difficult to say like how meaningful the math part of it is, besides just its usefulness in prediction, engineering, science, and it has incredible power in that way. But um, I still have this gut feeling of really separating natural things and computational things. Um,
Computational things being
well, anything abstract,
okay.
symbols, numbers,
I have a
equations.
question for you. Is like math, numbers, are they objectively real to you?
Um, Objectively,
Do they exist? Let's say, do we invent them? Do we create them? Do we discover them? That's more the question, I'd say.
I still ask myself this one, so I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Um, I lean towards the invented over discovered.
So do you mean invented in the modern sense or in the inventio Greek?
I, I would say more generally, yeah,
Okay.
inventing. This is so maybe that's why where I would side towards maybe not objective or objectively real, but they are subjectively real. But I have some categories for myself, and numbers for me are in this category of abstract, which is realized in the subjective. Um,
Okay. I hear you. That's cool.
but they can come off of a projective sort of a projective return from something that is objective. That's right, like the fractal math
Yes, yes,
works.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
It's only in the like sort of the echo, right? Like the fractal numbers aren't out in the tree branches, but we can look at the tree branches,
Yeah, I understand.
project our symbolic layer over it, and see if that reflects back, and if it works out.
Mm.
um but no, I'm not like a computational universe like Max Tegmark, a brilliant guy, like that it's numbers and computations out there, or that it's a sort of simulation or anything like that. I'm very much like a kind of naturalist, I guess. I don't always know the correct philosophy labels to put on myself.
Yeah.
um,
Do you listen
you know
to John Vervaeke?
oh yeah, I did the whole Awakening from the Meaning Crisis series back in the day
He's doing a transcendent naturalism series right now. I don't know if you've been following.
with Greg.
Greg Enriquez, yeah.
Hard for me to I it's hard for me to absorb that nowadays. I
Yeah,
would have been better off 10 years ago,
yeah.
when I had more time and attention and energy to absorb that. But
Less children.
I'm so on board with Vervaeke. He was another one of those guys that was so impactful to me. Um, just in opening me up to so much of cognitive science and spirituality and philosophy and all of that. So
Okay.
yeah,
I'd
and
like to,
he's
yeah.
mhm.
No, go
he
ahead.
has a he has a guru who was one of my gurus before. He's a big proponent of J.J. Gibson, if
Yeah,
you know Gibson.
I know him.
Yeah, when I read an ecological,
Theory of
um,
perception.
yeah, exactly. That really hit me hard. And yeah, that was a sort of foundation for the way that I look at the world. I brought that into my sort of perspective when I went into research in neuroscience and
Yeah,
perception. Um, when I was doing eye tracking studies. um,
amazing.
yeah,
I
but
I wanted to ask you because you mentioned Vervaeke, Pageau. So then we're already talking about this little corner, I would say. Um, how did you get into it, or was it the Peterson, the Peterson route?
um, Peterson and Vervaeke for sure
Okay.
early on.
Yeah.
And then Vanderklay and Pageau. Yeah, just like everybody. I think
Yeah,
like
I think.
once you get to Paul Vanderklay and then he's putting all of them together for you, and but Pageau as well. I wish, honestly, the one that I'm missing the most is Mathieu Pageau. I feel like
Yeah.
he is the one that I really want to hear from the most. Nothing against the other guys, of course. But his book uh, is amazing
Yeah.
and really relate to that sort of mathematical, spiritual perspective.
Yes.
Well, another one of those people like background in math and computation stuff like me, sort of got disillusioned by it all. Like when I started doing quantum physics in college, I was like, okay, this is it, really? Like, all right, this isn't so meaningful. But having that perspective and having that uh that lens to sort of take on things and be sort of create diagrams and just have a sort of formalism to
Yeah.
the way that you express the deeper ideas is something that comes natural to me. I do really great with a whiteboard, like drawing my diagrams um and all of that sort of thing. So everything is sort of represented in those types of icons
Yeah.
for me,
I
where I'm
agree.
always sort of seeking that out when I'm trying to put the pieces together.
Do you think visually or in words or both?
I would say mostly in words. My experience in the world is incredibly visual. Um, but my inner dialogue is strong and it feels like a dialogue to me.
Yeah. I agree. Okay.
What
I
about you?
oh, completely visual. I don't have any, like I barely have words at all.
You think imagery?
Almost, yeah, almost only. And I think this actually changed over time in my life, but I've been paying attention to it a lot lately. And I'm sad I'm not an artist because I think like I can see the images so clearly when I think, and I could never put it into on a canvas or anything, but it's yeah, it's really the way it is for me. So I was kind of surprised because I heard people talking about their inner dialogues and like, how there's always a voice going on. Like I've never heard this, at least not recently. And I tend to forget how I used to think. But
Ever try poetry?
yes, for myself, for
That's
sure.
what I mean, writing. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, it's mostly like I just see, for example, when I'm thinking about my next week, I see the way, like I run sort of simulations in my head about what fits and what doesn't fit. Like this conversation we're having right now. When we were planning it, I'm like, okay, Tuesday, got the yoga, got the freaking, you know, I don't think in words in that sense at all. Like I can force myself to think in words.
Mm.
But as I speak to you right now, I think that like I see visual things and then they come down into,
Interesting.
yeah,
Very interesting. I'm almost the exact opposite. I feel like I almost want to say that I have no imagination in the fact that I don't create any images at all. Um, and as you said, as you're preparing for things and thinking about, I'm always reviewing the conversation that I'm going to have.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
thinking about what will I say,
yeah,
you know, uh, in the chemistry class that I'm teaching, what is my talk track going to be? What am I going to say when I meet this person or have this interview or, um, even just like in my relationships, like, okay, we're going through this, like, I'm going to need to have this conversation. What am I going to say? What are they going to say?
yeah,
Um, so that's very interesting. Maybe that's why our energy is so different too. Like,
yeah.
I know I talk so fast, I think, and like, it's just coming
That's
out
great
really, really hard.
because
And you're just so nice, man. It's like, I wish I could be like you. I don't want to be so like hammering everything,
no,
but
but I'm telling you, I told Scott offline, this is such a superpower to me. And it's the reason why I think you're very nice to interview because, some interviews, um, I would have to come up with a lot of questions, like off the bat. You always have input and then the questions come naturally. So I don't have to like force myself. So it's super pleasant. So I'm very happy that you have this energy.
let's do it again.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
hope it isn't one-sided because I also like to hear from other people. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
no, clearly.
worried now that afterwards, if I happen to watch this again, I'm like, oh my God, you did it again. You just
No.
went off the rails, just going on and on and on, like you always do, Mr. Know-it-all, just talking it all out, you know. So I try to balance that, but when people bring it out in me, I guess it does just kind of flow out. So I'm willing to do that if you like
No,
it.
absolutely. And I think you told Karen that we have a thing for memory and that your family knows not to mention the word memory. And then Karen's like, no, 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 but I like to hear about this stuff. And really do feel very similarly. And I think this is the right setting for it. And I have the same. You watched the talk with my brother and my father, you told me. And at dinner, I'm like, guys, just don't do it here. Like all the family's there. But then when the podcast is there, it's perfect. And then
Yeah.
I can actually you help me think about things and you
Mm.
know so much about things that I don't know much of anything about. So that's really super
Well,
useful.
it seems like you have a super intelligent family and well spoken too. That must be really fun to be able to engage like that. I love my family,
Yeah.
but with my father, I would, well, I guess, I have some deep conversations with my father, but not of that, not belittling him, but not of that caliber,
Yeah.
like, But we relate on Jordan Peterson and things
Okay.
like that about human nature and things like that. But
Yeah, it's
yeah.
specific. It's specific because, for example, my father and my brother, they're both very, well, I don't want to describe them like this, but they're both quite propositional, let's say. So, and my brother's a philosophy teacher now, and my dad, of course, theology and all these things, but mostly very propositional, even though they both can feel. Um, and my girlfriend, for example, is the exact opposite. Like she's really participatory. She and she provides me different types of conversations. So even sometimes when you speak to people and it's not the same like caliber in terms in sense of like intellectual, the depth is so much more sometimes. But I'm glad to also reach that with them, like my father, my brother, in these propositional things. As long as it's not talking about politics, it's great.
Yeah, that is a tough one. That
Yeah.
is a Yeah, I mean the memory thing and other things again, it's just this sort of like my family knows better that I will go off on one of these rants and I can be very sort of confrontational, contrarian, or like, kind of preaching or teaching. I get this like teacher voice sometimes, which again, my experience of being a classroom teacher, it's like you have to be that person to explain it all to everyone. And so
Hmm.
it's like I find it very natural to like explain what I'm talking about. And they just, roll their eyes like, all right, man, like we've heard it before. We know that memories aren't stored in the brain. Like we get it. Okay. Like just said that I had a memory. All right. Just let me say that. Don't make me go into the neural. Like just let me have my memory. And
Well,
leave me alone.
you've got your little corner now. So I feel like so many
Well,
families, so many wives, so many husbands are so happy that their person have that their person has the little corner because that means that they'll be busy for a while.
exactly that. My wife is happy to release me to do this so that I don't, bring it onto her. Although we have
Same.
our own very deep conversations, and she teaches me a lot. She comes from a very different perspective as well that
Mm,
I can't come from. Maybe similar to you. She's a very intuitive, empathetic person,
hmm.
and so she thinks in a totally different way than I do. And when she brings questions uh and questions what I tell her when I go off on my rants, and she lets me do that, and you know just going on and on about my own theories, and then she's asking me questions and I'm like, okay, wow, wait, that is actually something I have not thought about. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Well, and then I end up asking her questions. So but you're right, an outlet, there's got to be some balance. And it's a hobby.
Yeah.
It's just like exercise. I still love to exercise and stay fit, and I run around the neighborhood with my girls in the stroller now, and um still go to the gym. I've been a strength and conditioning coach, and like so I
Nice.
can't stay out of the gym. um but this is kind of a part of that. I'm not fully into my PhD work,
Yeah.
but I have a little hobby. I have a little treat. I have a little
Yeah.
dessert of these types of conversations every once in a while. So
That's good. Are you still playing soccer at all?
uh this last winter I played in just like a very simple men's league, and that was the first time in a long time competitively,
Yeah.
because I'm so afraid to get injured again.
Yeah.
Um, Although all along the way when I coach, and I've been coaching, since my injury,
Yeah.
I would sort of play on the field,
Yeah, of
so
course.
I'm always just playing a little bit, but I did play a little bit competitively this last winter, and
Okay.
it was really fun. I was really getting into it. Let me tell you, it came right back.
Yeah.
And it was a blast. So I got to try to find a little bit of the right level of um, competition and lightheartedness, but able to still express myself um, on the field. So
I hear
yeah,
you. I have to, sorry, go ahead.
I love to nowadays a lot. Like what I do. I love to just sprint, to just go as fast. I'm still trying to get faster.
Yeah.
So I sprint up and down hills in my neighborhood, and like pushing my girls in the stroller, just sprinting around. That's kind of like how I get I get my fix because, in soccer, it was all about just sprint, 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 sprint,
Yeah.
jump. And so, I get that I'm hyperactive mind, hyperactive body. So it's always 100 miles an hour in my life.
To me, that's a really good sign because I feel, to me, I don't know why, but I think it's essential that you have like some sort of movement, and I really feel that thinkers, especially that have that as well, they have a sort of they have this extra thing to them, to me at least, that I can also really relate to. But it also, I think, it really resets when you're really full of stuff, and you get really that reset once you get started, get moving. And it also adds to the holistic, um let's say, the holistic human that I think a proper thinker should be, in my mind. Like in an ideal world, you have also the embodied side. So I'm glad to hear it. To me, it makes sense for you.
Oh, definitely. I think I had, because I'm in touch with the way that my body moves,
Yeah.
I'm more equipped to have ideas about the sensory motor system in terms of
Mm,
neuroscience, right?
mm,
Like,
yeah.
um, I understand like the thoughts and the non-thoughts to action and like how that plays a role. And so I think that that has also, fed my perspectives and my ideas on things like, how do we take actions in the world, how do we make motor movements, and so I did a lot of studying in that was what my master's thesis was related to, that sort of thing, gestalt theories of perception and sensory motor learning, essentially.
That sounds super cool. I was actually thinking of doing a thesis about perception, but there's no way I'm gonna. I'm in Egyptology, so it's like there's no way.
Hey, Egyptology.
Yeah,
Okay. Hey, our next conversation, can we talk about Egyptology?
yeah,
Because I'm
sure.
very interested.
Okay. I like, I'm no expert. I'm in my third year of
Okay,
my
I just want
course.
to know how old do you think the Egyptian culture is?
Um,
Well, don't out yourself. If you're in a
I'm
program, maybe don't. Maybe
yeah,
you
I'm
have
gonna get
to
into trouble. No, it's funny
bleep
because
it out. Bleep it out. Say it to me, and then just bleep it out in the post.
okay, I'll tell you and then I'll bleep it out. No, we'll keep it in. I honestly, I really don't know, but I'm not convinced that it's as old as my professors say they are. And I'm really close to my professors. Like I'm very close to, because the course is so small. Like today I had a class with myself and my friend and my teacher. And my teacher is like, he's in contact with a lot of the top Egyptologists. And to me, I mean, they're scientists. And you listen to the Wolfgang Smith episodes that I did with Karen, and to me, like, you have theories and they're plausible or they're possible, but there are a lot of anomalies, let's say, that lead me to believe that there's at least a lot of possibilities for the ancient Egyptian culture to be older than people think that it is. And of course, I from a young younger age, I was exposed to a lot of Graham Hancock, which was very fun. Uh, I can I can listen to him and be entertained, and of course realize that he's not always very accurate, but I love his speculations, and it helped me dream. It helped me also be motivated to get into the program. And so I won't give you a precise number, but I think it could very well be much older than we think.
Yeah, and here's what and so I've probably seen a lot of those things too, and not like Ancient Aliens, but there was another pyramid series that was, suggesting that it was much much older. There's also this group called like the Thunderbolts Project, which is a part of
Yeah.
like the Electric Universe. I don't know if you've
Okay.
been on that sort of like camp, where again it's like very intriguing, not always uh provable, but the other side is also, sometimes not provable.
Yeah.
Here's what sticks out to me. It's like it seems like it would take a long time to have a culture that has a language and some sort of purpose to build structures like that
Yeah.
and to do artwork like that. And it seems like to me it would take a lot longer than what the timeline is.
The timeline is weird.
And So yeah, I mean that the whole like Younger Dryas impact and that whole like 13,000 years ago type of I think there had maybe it wasn't Egyptian, but I think
Exactly.
there have been human civilizations with
Yeah.
symbolism and spirituality and you know engineering techniques to some degree much earlier. Um and so yeah, the sort of historical, timeline of the Egyptians. I don't want to like dispute that by any means, but I feel like the origins are
Yeah.
maybe elsewhere,
I
you
should
know?
correct myself as well because the Egyptian culture itself, the way we know it at least, maybe it was that there was a period that it was just ripped down and then it started back up again, or it was just really started the moment that they said it was. But you raise a good point in saying that it's possible that they found some of these things. It's possible that they inherited some of these things. That's what I would go more for than that they are actually much older. I think it's possible that there was something before, but we can we can leave that for later. I have like a million things I want to talk to you
Well,
about.
give me a preview. Give me a preview because I can think in the meantime. I was gonna say like I gotta go for now.
Yeah,
We gotta talk again.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And so yeah, what are you thinking? What do you want to talk about? Because I
Everything.
don't talk about anything.
I'm what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna re-listen to a conversation and then I start writing what I'm interested in. But you let me know as well, and I think we can just do it over if you have got the time, a lot of episodes because I think to me it will take me a while. Like with Wolfgang Smith, it took me a while to integrate it. So a lot of books, a lot of listening to him, and I feel similarly about you. So
Yeah, you'll have to read all my books.
yeah, that's the problem. That's why I got to talk to you.
I'm just kidding. No, I can't show you all that stuff that I have written. I honestly don't know how much there is. It's overwhelming to even think about going back through it, to be honest. But
Well, I'm down. I'm down.
dude, this was so fun. I'm so glad to meet you. Like
Yeah,
thank you for letting me talk and I want to hear from you too, but I'm happy to just go with whatever we have going here
yeah,
and um, so yeah, let's set it up offline. Let's just set
for
up the
sure.
next.
For sure. We'll settle the next one. And thank you. For me, it's really a pleasure because this was really one of my favorite conversations ever, online, offline. So
Cool.
it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, we'll meet in person one day. I've heard it's quite different. So play some football or soccer.
All right.
All right. Have a good one, Scott.
And see you next time.
I'll see you next time.